Welcome to Publishing Power Podcast. My name is Joellen, and today I have a fantastic guest with me, Amy Collins from New Shelves. Hello, Amy. Welcome.
Hello, Joellen, and to everyone. Huge fan of your site, of your podcast, but also of your services. Thank you so much for joining me and for asking me to join you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We are so excited to have you here today because as we do on Publishing Power, we like to bring in experts on what do you do next. We've done the editing and now you're moving on to the next part. And Amy is the former book buyer and founder of one of the fastest growing book distribution and marketing services in the US. She's the president of New Shelves Books. So she can really give us some advice on where to distribute, how to get our book out there, what to do. Amy is one of the best known book sales marketing agencies. She's a trusted expert, speaker, and recommended sales consultant for some of the largest book and library. Remember the libraries, retailers, and wholesalers in the publishing industry. In the last 20 years, Amy and her team have sold over 40 million books into the bookstore, library, and chain store market for small and mid-sized publishers. So she's a columnist for and a board member of several publishing organizations, and she's also a trusted teacher in the world of independent publishers. And that's why we're here today. She's going to teach us all about what she does. So welcome, Amy. I know you did a presentation for us.
I do. I put a couple of thoughts together because the questions that I'm asked most often circle around, how do I get my books into airport stores? Mm-hmm. How do I get my books into bookstores? How can I get them into the big chains? I want my book in Walmart. I want my book in Costco. And my smart aleck answer is always, well, so do I. So what I've done is I've put together a few notes that I thought your people might find interesting to explain how the retail side of the world works. So if that works with you guys, here is, I hope you don't mind, I've just put a few notes together talking about book retailers and how to get outside of beyond Amazon, because Amazon's great, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I love barnesandnoble.com. But after a while, you might want to just keep in mind that according to Amazon themselves, Amazon will tell you this if you look at their quarterly reports. Amazon is only responsible for 49% of the new book purchases last year.
Right.
That means that 51% of the, now this is print books. I'm not talking about ebooks. Ebooks is a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to sell a paperback or a hardcover, a coloring book, anything that's not an ebook, then 51%, more than half of the book sales last year weren't on Amazon. They were in the real world. And so let's talk a little bit about the real world. As I go through, I'm going to say all sorts of things. And if you have any questions, if there's something that I've said or a question that you have that I don't answer, I would ask you please to go to amysadvice.com. There's a button there where you can just hit it. You can ask me a question. I'm happy to answer it offline after this class.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
All right. So if it's okay with you, Joelle, I want you to jump in and ask questions as I go through.
Mm-hmm. I will do.
Because you know more about what your authors are interested in learning than, I mean, I was just guessing. But I wanted to start by talking about selling to the marketplace. Right. The marketplace, in my mind, is anywhere a reader, a purchaser, can buy a book. And so my first question for you, Joelle, if you want to think about a recent project that you worked on, the question I would ask you and that author is, where do you want your book to sit? Mm-hmm. What shelf? There's a reason why I called my company New Shelves. What shelf do you want your book on?
Right.
Do you want it on a supermarket shelf? Do you want it at Books A Million, Barnes and Noble? Are you more interested in kitschy retailers like Cracker Barrel or Urban Outfitters? Mm-hmm. Are you more interested in the military market, maybe the exchanges or the PXs, and you want to go through the AFI system? Are you swinging for the fences? Do you want to get into Costco and Walmart or Target? Where do you want your book is the very first question.
Right.
Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's right. And you've worked with all of these, I understand. This is quite.
I still do. I still sell books. I'm sitting in the lobbies of a lot of these places every couple of months.
Nice.
So a lot of people, they know how to get their book into their local bookstore. they grab 4 copies and they drive over and they say, "Hey, Sarah, good to see you. I just, my book just got published. Can I put some on your shelf?" And they say, "Fine." But I'm talking about bigger. If you're interested in getting into the chains, I thought this might be just a brief overview of how the chains work, and then we'll move into the rest of the marketplace. Is that okay with you?
That's fantastic. This is
All right, so
a
let's
whole new
talk
area.
a little bit about how chains buy a book, because it's very different from how the rest of the industry buys a book. If I was going to walk into my local bookstore and say, "Hey, Sarah, I've got another book that just came out. I self-published it, or somebody published it for me, and I'm a great customer. Can you stock some on your shelf?" She said, "I'll take 3, 4 copies. We'll see how they do." She'd take them and put them on her shelf, and a month later, if I called her, she's not going to call me, she'd say, "We sold 2 copies, and come on in and I'll pay you for them," and then bring 2 more to replace them.
Right.
But let's talk about how the bigger boys play. What's it like on in the big leagues? To start with, when I'm selling books to Home Depot or Lowe's or PetSmart or Michael's Arts and Crafts or Barnes and Noble or any of the chains that have a distribution center and lots of locations, I start by presenting my book to the wholesalers. And we're going to talk about wholesalers and who they are and how they work. But I don't actually start by selling my book to Costco. I start by selling my book to the wholesaler that Costco buys books from.
Excellent.
Costco's not going to buy the book from me. They're going to buy the book from Ingram. Walmart's not going to buy the books from me. They're going to buy the books from a company called A-Merch, also known as Anderson Merchandisers.
Mm-hmm.
Target's not going to buy from me. They're going to buy from ReaderLink. These are company wholesaler names, so you have to get to know them. And again, guys, you're jotting down like crazy. What's the name of that wholesaler for Target? Don't worry, I've put a page together. Joelle's going to get it. It's all available as part of this class. You just calm down. This is an overview. But I promise that Joelle has these links. I am getting them to her. She will have them all. You have my promise. I do not hide this stuff. But if I gave you every name and every URL, you wouldn't listen to me anymore. And I like being listened to. So the next thing after I present the book to a wholesaler is I then present that same book to the buyers at the retail chain. First, I present the book to Leisure Arts down in Arkansas, and then I take it to Michael's Arts and Crafts. And I say to the buyer at Michael's Arts and Crafts, don't worry. The wholesaler that you like working with the most, Leisure Arts, knows about this book. It's already in their database. Because what you don't want is for the buyer at Walmart to turn to her computer, type in the name of your book, and find out none of her wholesalers carry it. She at that point will know that you don't know how her business works. She's annoyed and she doesn't want to work with you anymore because you're going to make her job more difficult. After you present the book to the buyer, and after the buyer acknowledges and sees that you're smart and you went to the wholesaler first, and she decides, and I'm saying she, because the buyer that I work the most closely with at Walmart at the moment, and so I'm just using her as an example, is a she. But the buyer then will decide, yes, I think this book would be great on my shelves. And that buyer then goes into months of meetings, and it's like Thunderdome. There's a fight to the death with other buyers because there's only this much space in Walmart for your book, this much space, and everything is based on planograms. Planogram is a phrase that chains, even Barnes and Noble uses, to plan out over the next 6, 8, 10 months what books are going to sit on what shelves and at what time frame. Have you been into a Books A Million or a Barnes and Noble or a major chain? I know you're down a little further south, but if you walk into these major chains, one of the first things that you'll see is a big table. And that table of books will say, new in this month, or it's tax time, or lose a little weight, your butt's looking big. Why don't how to make your butt a little smaller? Okay, the table won't be called that, but that'll be the unspoken message. Each of those tables was planned out months in advance, and every book on that table paid thousands upon thousands of dollars to be there.
Wow.
So when you decide that you're going to pitch your book to a chain, and let's say it'd be perfect for February grilling season in the spring in the Midwest in the United States, or it would be exactly what you need in the UK for Christmas time, you need to start 9 months in advance because these chains are planning 8-9 months out for these planograms. And then once they decide that your book has made the cut, they're going to send a purchase order to the wholesaler, also known as a jobber. I'm using both terms so that you're aware of it. And then the jobber will send the order to you or your publisher, depending on if you are the publisher.
Right.
At that point, the publisher will print and ship the books to the jobber. But let's talk a little bit about how wholesalers work. But be aware that if you decide to sell your book to Barnes & Noble and they need 3,000 copies, they're going to turn around and they're going to order 3,500 copies from Ingram.
Okay.
And Ingram is going to turn around and order 4,500 copies from you because everybody wants a little cushion. They don't want to get caught short. Barnes & Noble in Atlanta, Georgia, and another Barnes & Noble in LA, California. Let's say your book sells out of LA, California, but there's still 10 copies left in Atlanta, Georgia. Barnes & Noble's not going to ship the 10 copies from Atlanta to LA. Oh, no. Barnes & Noble's going to go to Ingram, order another 10 copies for LA, and these 10 copies sitting in Atlanta will just sit there. Eventually, they'll be returned and shipped back to you. So there's always a big cushion when you deal with the big chains, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide. Are there any questions, though, before I move on?
Wow, this is great. So we have the jobbers and the team buyers and the planograms. So those are totally new vocabulary for us today. Very
yeah. And again, this is a general overview. I mean, I teach classes on this that take 2-3 hours where I really dig in and I give everyone details. But I want you guys to just start to get to know the language.
No, this is good. Keep going.
And when you come to me on September 10th and tell me you want your book in Michael's Arts and Crafts for Christmas, then you'll understand why I'm laughing so hard with tears streaming down my face, thinking it's hysterical.
So
because
trends are must be very hard to keep on top of a trend. If you're going to get that out fast enough, that must be very difficult.
It is. But the good thing about the industry is that because they do publish and purchase 6, 9, 8 months out, there's a lot of information out there about what the bigger guys are doing.
Okay.
If all of a sudden Random House has 5 books about werewolves, and you are sitting in the Walmart lobby and you're seeing that there's a bunch of werewolf books, now you know that. And now if you're not sitting in the lobby, most of us aren't, but you don't have that sort of access, but you know where you want it. Can I give you a little hint?
Tell me.
If you go to Amazon.com and look down the left-hand side, I wasn't planning on doing this, guys, so I don't have a screen for this, but if you go to Amazon.com and look down the left-hand side and search under books, you can search upcoming books for the next 90 days. They actually have a drop down and they give you a choice. You can search for pre-order books coming out in the next 90 days. And then you search in the search bar by top publisher or top imprint. And all of a sudden you'll see all the Simon & Schuster books coming out in the next 90 days. And you can kind of get a sense of what's coming. And that's a wonderful way, because if you've decided to write a book about a dog who can talk, and you know, you see that there's 9 other books about a dog who can talk that came out 2 years ago, you may have missed your window. Okay. But the way to tell is to take a look at what the other, if they're still into talking dogs, and if there's some more talking dog books coming down the pike, it's a very easy way to do a little bit of market viability research. There's deeper ways, but that's a quick down and dirty way. Yeah, that's good. I think for authors seeking their next topic or trying to find out, you know, do I continue with this project now, choosing between what they have, it's a nice way to determine where to take that. If you're really interested in doing that sort of deep research, may I recommend the Book Industry Study Group, BISG, Book Industry Study Group. It's not inexpensive, but man, they are so good about keeping you up on trends. Okay. And a less expensive option, if you go to statistica.com, costs about $500 a year for a subscription, but they pull the most amazing stats, and that has paid for itself 1,000,000 times over for me. I bet. Okay, that's an exaggeration. It's paid for itself several times over. I'm prone to exaggeration for effect.
Well, millions. Yeah, it works.
All right, so shall we take a step back, though, and talk a little bit about just normal bookstores?
Yes, please.
Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, your local independents, they are not planning out every square inch 9 months in advance. They're a little more casual. Yes, their front tables and their end caps and their windows are planned out 6 or 9 months in advance. And yes, you do pay for those.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of shelves in a big bookstore or even in a small bookstore. And you have a better chance of getting your book on those shelves. But you have to have certain things in place.
Okay.
You need to still be working with the big wholesalers. And a lot of you right now have heard of Ingram. Ingram, especially in North America, UK, Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Ingram is it now in the UK. There's also Gardner's. I would recommend that you pay attention to them. I don't know, Joelle, down in South America or in Central America who the big wholesalers are, but I will find out. But at the moment, for those of you who are working in the English-speaking world, Gardner's, Ingram, those are the biggies. If you're in the United States or in North America, on the East Coast, Bookazine, and on the West Coast, America West.
Mm-hmm.
And these wholesalers are very important to get in because these wholesalers sell to retailers. That is their whole job. They buy from the publisher at about a 50 or a 55% off. Let's say your book is a $20 retail book.
Right.
And I say that because I'm an English major and don't want to do difficult math. So I'm not going to make a $16.95 book here. But if you have a $20 book, Ingram will buy it from you at $9.50.
Okay.
That's a 55% discount. But they will turn around and sell that book for $12 to the bookstore. The bookstore gets to keep the $8 difference. Ingram gets to keep the $1.50 or so. See, I told you don't want to trust an English major with math. It's $2.50. And then the publisher keeps the other $9.50. And from that, the publisher has to pay for the printing and all the publisher costs. And if you're the publisher, you know what you have to pay for. Ingram, however, who's keeping that $2.50, they have to pay for the gas, the trucks, the employees, the boxes, the shipping. And the bookstore that gets to keep the $8, they have to pay for their employees and their mortgage or rent. And they have to keep the lights on. So everybody's paying through the nose. And, you know, don't get too upset by that 55%. It actually is quite a deal when you think of everything you're getting. Wholesalers will often guide purchasing decisions. I have a couple of rep friends who actually work for Baker & Taylor, Bookazine, Ingram, and they sit in the buyer's offices and they get to push books that they like by the publishers they appreciate. Wow. So you want to get in with the wholesalers. If a wholesaler is going to offer you some marketing opportunities, seriously look at them. There's a library wholesaler in Williamsport, Pennsylvania called Brodart, and they've got a fantastic program where if you pay the $300, they will recommend your book to libraries all over the United States. It's a great use of money.
Nice.
But wholesalers and retailers buy returnable.
Yeah.
You're going to sell your book on a returnable matter. And so when I tell you that if Barnes & Noble wants 3,000, you'll probably end up printing 4,500.
Okay.
And then we just hope that your book is good enough and that it takes off and it appeals to enough people that you blow through those 4,500 or at least 4,300.
Right.
According to the Book Industry Study Group, as well as several other Nielsen Bookscan and Publishers Weekly and several organizations that get together and report every year, the return rate from the bookstore market at the moment, going through the American Publishers Association, the bookstore market return rate is roughly 12%. That's brick and mortar bookstores.
How does that pan out statistically, I mean, economically? Because that doesn't sound bad to me off the top of my head. I was expecting maybe something larger.
Well, it is larger across the industry if you take into account Walmart and Amazon. Amazon's return rates are quite high. And, you know, the return rate across the industry is closer to 25%.
Okay.
But in the bookstore market, it's only 12%.
Okay.
And that's pretty reasonable. But if you're only making $1.50 or $1.80 a book as a publisher total profit, which is average, that's normal. It's less than $2 a book for anybody.
Okay.
You got to be careful. Keep those return rates low. So.
Yeah. like meet up.
The other thing to keep in mind is that quite often some of these wholesalers, like for Target and Walmart, the employees at Target and Walmart aren't actually putting the books on the shelf. Those are the wholesaler employees.
Okay.
So, you know, you're losing a lot of money in the 55% discount, but you're also paying for a lot of services.
Okay.
Decide now before you move forward if you can live with these terms. Figure out a way to print your books. If you can get into a big chain and they want 5,000 copies, you're not going to print those on demand. You should go to Malaysia or Korea or China and print them very inexpensively.
Mm-hmm.
Just want a reminder of what the planogram world is, because you had said, Joelle, that this is somewhat new to you guys. So I just did a refresher. Each pocket is planned. No inch of shelf space in a bookstore chain, in a Costco, in a Walmart, in a supermarket, airport stores. Not 1 inch of shelf space is unaccounted for. Every single inch of shelf space has to make money for the store owners. Every book needs to be making money. It is no longer, it never was. People somehow think that bookstores used to give books a chance, that it was their job to introduce new authors to the industry and to the world. No, it's never been their job. They never agreed to that. Their job is to make books available to their customers that their customers want.
Right.
So your book had better be earning its keep. Make sure you plan months in advance, and that every conversation you have with a wholesaler, with a retail buyer, with anyone, that your focus is how your book is going to add to their profits.
Right.
When you're talking to a bookstore, I'm begging you, please do not focus on how wonderful your book is. There are a million wonderful books.
Right.
What they want to know is, will your wonderful book make them money? And I know that sounds crass. I know some of you right now are clicking off and you're saying, well, that's not what I got into the industry for.
Right.
And I would argue that that's not why you became a writer. But if you want to be in the industry, then that's exactly what you're in for, because this is a business. Writers are creative. Publishers are in a business.
Correct.
Retailers are in a business. Questions before, because I feel like I'm being very depressing right now, and I'd love to move on to prettier things.
I think, what we talk about a lot here is that, quite often people talk about their craft and developing that and their skills and their creativity and the point of view and the plot and things like that. And that's all great. But once we get beyond the inside pages, the planning needs to start way before and way after. And everything you do, even inside the book, needs to reflect where it's going. And that's so important for authors to hear again and again and again, that if you are going to succeed, if this is going to be part of your independent career or part of your multi streams of income, then how are you going to put this out there? Where are you going to get your platform, your marketing, your publicity, your distribution, all these things? And so this is what they need to hear again. I think it's just very interesting to have more of the actual logistics, because that's something that just seems like a mystery. You're behind the curtain, and to move the curtain back today and to let us see where that goes, and to know that someone like yourself has these connections, and how complicated that is. For many years, a career worth of getting to know every person. It's hard enough to keep up with technology. I can't imagine how it is to keep up with the hiring, firing, and the trends that people have, and the connections you have to create over years, centuries, not centuries.
It feels like centuries.
But yeah, decades.
If an author wants to get published by a top publisher, they will get an incredible edge if they can discuss business as business is with an agent or with an editor, and explain, if any author that walked up to any of my agent friends and said, I'd be willing to travel to the jobbers, I'd be willing to go to the wholesalers, I will do presentations at sales conferences, I will create content for the websites of the retailers. Nice. Any author who shows that they understand how the business works will have an enormous edge in getting published. And any author who decides to start their own publishing enterprise will will find they'll get very depressed because Pew Foundation and several people will report that the average number of books that sell is under 100.
Right, right.
But you will be far above average and you will be far more successful if you focus on this business end.
Exactly, exactly. It is a business. It is a business.
So again, this is a total overview, but I wanted to show you a few of the materials and tools that you might want to consider. I get nothing for recommending any of these tools. There's no kickback. These are the ones I use. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that having a sales sheet, and there's two different ones here. I've got a fiction sales sheet on one side and a nonfiction sales sheet on the other. Worry-Free Retirement, Guide to Finding a Trustworthy Financial Advisor, and then the Perfect Pitch. Two very different, they both happen to be blue because, well, I like blue. But because the covers, it made sense. Mm-hmm. But having a sales sheet that is visual and will quickly allow a buyer to see what's the ISBN, what's the retail price, what's the trim size, who's the publisher, is it available at the wholesalers, what's the marketing plan? Right. Having that information is very important. I did this sales sheet at canva.com. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Canva, C-A-N-V-A. There's lots of places you can go, but I just did it really quickly there. Okay. Another thing that's very important to have is an author sheet, a sheet about you. What are some of the things you can be interviewed about? What are some of the things you would be willing to speak on? How to get a hold of you? Mm-hmm. A great picture of you. What's your bio? You can't fit it all on one piece of paper. You're going to have a couple of different sheets. Again, I did this on Canva. Now this next one I did on Word because I couldn't cram it all in. But it's important if you're going to reach out to the wholesalers, especially to the wholesalers who serve Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and some of the bookstore chains. Mm-hmm. You have to have reviews. Right. You have to have endorsements. You have to have a marketing plan, maybe an award or two, at least be a finalist. So what I'm putting together, what I'm putting out at this point is that it's important to have in one small packet information about the book, information about the author, and what are you going to do as an author, or what have you done to drive your book and to get it into the consciousness of the readers out there. Awards, reviews, that sort of thing.
Correct. And here, I was at the Book Expo in New York, and the hot topic was that, you needed to have 10,000 followers for most of the publishers to want to talk to you, because this, what you've gone down there with the YouTube and the internet and the TV, do you have a platform that's developing? Do you understand what you bring? Because it is so competitive now, from my understanding.
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you should be building that platform today. It's that this isn't something that waits until after your book is in its second edit or whatever. You should be reaching out to readers and connecting with people today. I am not a big fan of marketing myself. I do not market. I don't push. I don't sell. You know what I do? I connect. Right. I go find authors or people who maybe need to know how to get into Michael's Arts and Crafts, and I offer to give them a hand. Right. I connect with people. I make offers. Mm-hmm. And if my offer is not of interest, or if the questions that I'm answering or the advice that I'm offering doesn't thrill you, well, then it will help somebody else. Correct. But shoving yourself in, getting your elbow in there and trying to edge your way in is not going to work. No. It's never worked for me.
No, it was frightening. The variety of authors that I met. You really need to educate yourself before you go in to present yourself, because there is a variety of skills, from how to speak, how to present, but to have these tools, especially, as many writers are introverts, having these tools, I can see, having my bio page, my book, these kind of things are very helpful, and also takes a lot of the stress off. You don't have to think so much, okay, but I've prepared. So follow the instructions, and most authors are very good at following instructions.
Yeah. Well, the biggest instruction is don't sell your book. Right. The biggest instruction is ask whomever you're speaking with, I don't care who it is, about their business and their wants and needs, and then see if you or your book can fill any of their wants and needs. It does you no good to walk into any conversation and start talking about your book. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody,
Mom.
including
Okay,
me, and I
Mom.
get paid to care. I promise you, Joellen does not care. But if you start with a conversation and you ask the buyer, the librarian, the wholesaler, what's going on in your business? What holes do you have? Are there any categories that you find that you're chasing after that you need? Ask them about their business. What sort of discounts are you getting? Do you need any content? What is it you need? And if you approach them that way, you're going to have a whole new relationship with the industry that you would never be granted if all you did was walk in and talk about what a fantastic book you have about this dog that can talk.
Exactly.
Couple things to keep in mind, and then I promise I will shut up and let Joelle ask me questions. Book buyers are very, very busy. They're extremely busy. So be careful when you approach them, Walking into a Barnes & Noble at 11:15 on a Saturday afternoon is not a good idea if you want to ask them questions. Stores have far fewer staff than they used to. If you want to do an event or if you want to do some sort of workshop, keep in mind that the fastest and easiest way to get a yes is to start by telling them that you will bring your own help and that they don't need to staff your event at all. You'll take care of it. Get your sister-in-law to come with you. It's easy. I want to remind you guys what I said before, that it is not a store's job to give your book a chance. It's just not. It's their job to pay their employees and keep the lights on. That's their job. And if your book can help them do that, wonderful. And if they don't think your book is going to connect with their audience, that doesn't mean your book isn't wonderful. It doesn't mean they don't even like your book. It may not be a great fit. I know a ton of librarians who no longer stock romance novels. Romance is, but because everyone wants mystery. Nobody wants historical romance anymore. In that town, but 3 towns over, they can't get enough of historical romance.
Exactly.
So don't be discouraged when librarian Ella says, oh no, we don't do any historical romance. Because 2 towns over, Gracie needs a ton of it. So keep going. Stores will only try books that when we can convince them that the books will make them money. And I know that sounds harsh, but before you call or contact a store, just keep in mind, you can make life easier for the librarian, the buyer, the wholesaler, by asking yourself, well, what is it they're going to want? I know what they want and need now because I asked. I listened to that awful woman, Amy, talk for 20 straight minutes. And so here's a couple things that I need to have in my head. From where can these people order the books? Can they get it from Ingram? Can they get it from Brodart? Where can they get the books from? And the wholesaler is going to want to know, okay, well, where can I order the books from? Do I order it from you? Do I order it from your publisher? What discount and returnable terms are being offered? You need to know that right on the tip of your tongue. We offer wholesalers a 55% discount. No, we don't pay for shipping. Yes, we're returnable. Know that. Don't hem and haw. Don't call them until you know exactly what you can offer them. Know what marketing you're doing and what you're willing to do. And keep in mind just the idea, why would any store expect to sell any of your book? If you can answer that question before you walk in, you're going to be an extremely successful author. And that's what this is all about. It's about becoming more successful. Can you provide value long distance? If I live in Rochester, New York, but I want my book in LA, can I do a Skype session? Can I perhaps write a top 10 list? Can I do a podcast from Costa Rica and offer value from a long distance? It's a new world, guys. You don't need to only stick around Brighton, New York. Well, that is my incredibly annoying overview of the retail marketplace, but I want to remind you guys all what I said. If you go to newshelves.com, if you email me at amy@newshelves.com, I'm happy to answer your questions. But anyone, any friend of Joelle's and First Editing, anyone at all, I'm a huge fan of what you guys do, who would like a free 15-minute consult. I don't sell anything. I don't want your money. I just want to help. If you need your questions answered and you think you're ready for a marketing or sales conversation, I do offer a free 15-minute chat with people. Just go to talktoamy.com and grab a day and time that we can talk about your project, and I would be happy to help out where I can.
Great. This is fantastic. I really think this helps prepare. And I think that, my final questions are here. We're going to prepare our sheets. We're going to get familiar with these terms and understand what the wholesalers and the jobbers and the things like that are. If we're going to start with that, is it best to get somebody to hold our hands? What are these the steps we just take individually, or is there more of a step-by-step book or a handout or something that would maybe, how do they fill in the blanks?
I happen to like my book, but that's just me.
Imagine.
Right way, WRITE.com. But it depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you are an author who wants to start your own publishing imprint and
Yep.
truly publish your own book, you are taking on an expensive and very time-consuming new business launch. It is not going to happen inexpensively, and it's not going to happen in 90 days. That's not how publishing works. I cannot mend a bone in less than 8 weeks, and you cannot properly produce a book in less than 8 weeks. You can produce a book-shaped object in 3 days, but that doesn't make it a properly published book. So if you're going to take off your author hat and put on a publisher hat, you definitely need guidance. You need to hire someone to watch until you've learned all the ropes.
Right. I think first time through, it's worth it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you want to get published and you're going to get an agent, that's a whole nother set, but you need to start getting your platform going. You need to understand these terms that I'm using, but you don't need to get in and good and go to the cocktail parties with the wholesalers that sell Target. But you do need to understand the terms. It's less of a time investment on your part, but it even takes longer, because getting an agent and then getting a publishing deal, we're talking years before your book may come out.
Right.
And then there's the hybrid in the self-publishing world, and there's the vanity presses, and there's the people out there that just be careful, guys. I would recommend sites like janefriedman.com.
Exactly.
You mentioned that Joanna Penn is a friend. Yes. Well, the Ally, ALLI.org, Orna Ross and Joanna Penn are very instrumental in the Alliance of Independent Authors.
Exactly.
I highly recommend joining them. Mm-hmm. And feel free, if you don't like any of these people, well, just feel free to edit me out after. But thebookdesigner.com,
yes,
great resource. IngramSpark.com has a fantastic podcast. They've got a blog. They've got tutorials. Their wealth of information at Ingram Spark is stunning. And finally, if I may say, the blog at newshelves.com, written by, it's not bad. The newshelves.com blog, it's got a few beneficial, actually it's got a lot. It'll tell you about ISBNs and libraries and Library of Congress. And we've got a whole frequently asked questions page. And I would love to see you guys there.
Sure, absolutely. And we have a link to New Shelves on First Editing, so please visit there. But again, I love this fact that they can go directly to talktoamy.com and contact you, because it feels like we're just turning on this huge faucet, and it can be just overwhelming. But it's better to take it drip by drip and take a drink when you can and come back. You don't need to learn it all today, but you do need to map out your journey. And if you know your destination, where you want to be, then, and you know where you are, all you got to do is figure out each step along the way. And that's what it's all about, because it is an ever-changing, ever-growing, and highly intricate world out there for publishing. And that's why we're here today, to talk a little bit about that. So thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Oh gosh, it's wonderful finally getting the face-to-face. I appreciate it. I loved this.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on Publishing Power Podcast. And again, I encourage you to go visit Amy Collins at www.talktoamy.com and to visit newshelves.com and figure out where you are on your path. And if you have any questions, reach out to her. She'll be glad to help you. Again, thank you for coming today.